Woo! We are back. The UFC is back. MMA is back. We're back. And this week, the UFC is headed to China. UFC Shenzhen is up on the list, and I couldn't be more excited to be back at my desk doing another episode of the Die Hard MMA podcast. Like I talked about last week, we have already done the recap from UFC 241. That night was absolutely brutal. I did a full recap episode dedicated to UFC 241, so there will be no recap here today. I just want to get into the good stuff. Since we don't have to spend any time doing a recap, I do want to go over a couple things that have been happening. It's only been a week and a half or so since we got some UFC action, and all kinds of shit is going on in the MMA world. It's kind of nuts right now. First and foremost, the apology. Conor McGregor's episode with Ariel Helwani. He came on. He kind of lamented some of the things he had done. He admitted he was wrong for punching the old man in the bar. I mean, it was kind of a weird thing. I know you all have probably talked about this thing to death. And based on my tweets, if you follow me on Twitter, you can probably gauge my response here. I am not too worried about Conor McGregor. He was an elite talent. He's a great fighter. I do want to see him fight again, but honestly, I have my suspicions that he can beat anybody in the top 5 at 155 these days. Now, don't get me wrong. He's got a shot. He is an elite talent, but he seems to have lost his fire. He seems to have lost his drive, his motivation. Now, there were a couple of rumors floating around that maybe they're trying to put together either Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo 2 at lightweight, which honestly, I would love, because I've always wanted to watch that fight. I think that fight plays out completely differently if Conor doesn't get that fast, lightning quick knockout. I want to see what happens. I would love to see that fight go again, just so we can find out how that actually goes. I mean, it gives Conor a chance to prove that what he did the first time wasn't a fluke. It's a winnable fight. It reestablishes him over a solid, respectful fighter like Jose Aldo, and it gives Jose Aldo a chance to come in and go, no, the first one was a fluke, and this is how it should have gone, and then gives him an opportunity for some vengeance there. I love that fight. I think that's a great fight. It's a good place to fit Conor back into the way things are shaping up right now in the 155-pound division. He doesn't have to fight one of the top 5, the killers, but it's not like you can say that he's taking a cupcake fight either, because whoever called Jose Aldo a cupcake? The other option, Tony Ferguson, damn, that's 2 legs right in the deep end of the pool. He would be diving straight back into the action with that fight. I would love that fight. That one basically would need to be a title eliminator at that point, though. I mean, Tony more than deserves a title shot at this point, and Conor McGregor wants a title shot, so if he were to get by Tony, I wouldn't be able to deny him, because Tony's on a historic win streak, should be the champion, should have fought Khabib already. I mean, if you beat that guy, you damn well deserve a title shot as well. So I think that's a win-win spot for both guys. I mean, if you're not going to give Tony the title shot right away, give him Conor. I mean, massive payday, even more exposure. And if he wins that, I mean, there is zero doubt. There's already zero doubt that he deserves the next title shot. But if anybody out there poo-poos absolutely anything, or wants to see Conor back, or wants to see Gaethje take a shot, or anything like that, if anybody is ranking anybody in the world over Tony Ferguson, if he goes out there and smokes Conor McGregor, there is zero talking me out of giving that man a title shot. There better be zero talking Dana White out of getting that man a title shot at that point. So honestly, both interesting takes. I like both options, but there's been a whole ton of fight announcements. I've been retweeting like crazy the last couple days. Follow me on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. Anytime news breaks, anytime stuff goes out there, big fight announcements, stuff like that, I'm all over it. I try to get that stuff out there so we can kind of talk about upcoming matchups and stuff like that. And holy crap, the return of Rumble. Anthony freaking Rumble Johnson is going to come back to the UFC. He's coming out of retirement. He's gonna fight in 2020. I honestly had given up hope. I am so excited right now. I had given up hope that Anthony Rumble Johnson would ever come back to us. He seems to be doing really well for himself with the bare knuckle boxing stuff, with his fitness stuff. I mean, he just seems to be happy outside of fighting. And when that happens, you almost never see these guys come back, because they have phased it out. They've gone to the next stage of their lives. They have a career. They have income. They're not hungry anymore. They don't need to go out there and fight for a living. So the fact that he has the desire to come back and fight, he has the drive to come back and fight, it's not a financial thing, it makes all the world of difference to me, because we're going to get a hungry Anthony Rumble Johnson coming back who just wants to hurt people. He's so fast. He was the hardest UFC puncher I think we had ever seen until Francis Ngannou. So the fact that he is coming back at either 205 or heavyweight, I'm not sure which one he's going to end up at. People are speculating heavyweight. I like that, but I'm a little concerned that he might be too small for some of the top tier heavyweights like an Ngannou. And then obviously we know he struggles with the wrestling, so guys like Stipe are going to cause him a problem if he gets up that far. So, I mean, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. If he's just barely coming back, he needs a tune-up fight, obviously, from the long layoff, but he was by far and away one of my favorite fighters for a very, very long time. So it's big news to me that he is coming back, and I'm super excited for that. Before we move on to UFC Shenzhen, though, I want to tell you guys a story. I had a couple of fun things happen to me. So, as you all know, I'm a poker player, degenerate gambler. I'll do pretty much anything if you put $5 on the line for it. And so I'm doing a fantasy football draft, and I don't know how many of you actually follow football. I'm sure there's a decent number of you who do. But Andrew Luck retired. Now, those of you who don't know, he's the quarterback for the Colts. Well, we just bought in for this Dynasty League. Now, a Dynasty League is different in fantasy football from normal fantasy football because you actually keep your players. It's almost like you're pretending to be the general manager of your own football team. We have our first annual draft, and it's the biggest and only large draft like that because from that point on, you're trading players, or you're picking up rookies, you're picking people up off of the bench. You never go back to the drawing board and have a chance to get that number one running back or that number one quarterback. You never, ever start over. You keep your team forever. And if you want somebody, you gotta offer the other guy something big in return because they're giving up a valuable player. Well, we get done with our draft, and this is a $100 buy-in, mind you, an annual $100 buy-in draft, and freaking Andrew Luck retires, and the guy, you should have seen the look on the dude's face that drafted Andrew Luck. He was all hyped up and excited because the Colts are gearing up for like a potential Super Bowl run this year. This guy thinks he's got an absolute steal getting Luck in the draft when he did. He's got his quarterback for the year, and boom, just sudden complete disbelief. The entire room just busts out laughing because this poor guy drafted Andrew Luck not 15 minutes before. And then we're watching the college football game and it flashes up on the bottom from ESPN that Andrew Luck has retired. I about died. I'm sorry. I mean, it sucks to be him, but it was one of the funniest things that I've seen in a long, long time. And while we're on the subject of football and story time here at the Die Hard MMA podcast, I had a bet this weekend that I wanted to tell you all about. So there were, football's getting started, and there were some preseason games. I'm a Vikings fan. Those of you who don't know, I'm a diehard Vikings fan. They were playing the Arizona Cardinals, and I wanted to do a moneyline parlay, Arizona Cardinals with the Florida Gators. Now, the Florida Gators were playing Miami, Florida. First week of college football, or week 0, I guess they call it, when there's only like 1 or 2 games to get the season rolling. Well, the Gators are a 7-point favorite. I don't feel comfortable laying that full 7, but I like the money line. I was kind of doing the same strategy I do in MMA, where you bet 2 favorites to bring the price down, and then, that way you've got a good spot where you feel like both teams will come through, but not necessarily dominate. So I'm splitting the action with a friend, and she goes to place the bet. Now, we've been doing this for a long time. We go split action on our bets a lot sometimes, and she's never ever once messed up. Never before has she messed up. She goes to the betting window and comes back with this ticket, and I tell her, do Vikings, moneyline, Florida, moneyline. She comes back with the Chicago Bears +3 and Miami, Florida at +7. I was like, what? How did you come up with that? It wasn't even close to the bet that I wanted to make. It wasn't even close. I had no idea what was going to happen in the Bears game. That's not a game I had put any work or effort or research into. It was literally throwing a dart at it because I had no idea. And then the other game, she picked the opposite team. I wanted Miami, and I understand it's confusing. There was Miami versus Miami, Florida, but I said Florida Gators. Like, that's all you've got to say is the Gators. And she took the points on 2 underdogs, and I'm sitting there like rubbing my temples. I was like, what just happened? I was in for the sweat of my life for football because here I am sitting with this ticket that is nowhere near the spot that I wanted to be in. So I'm jumping up and down. I'm screaming at the TV. I have never been more into these 2 dang football games because I'm cheering for the wrong side in the Florida Gators game than I expected to be on. And let me tell you, that game was a nail biter. And we got saved. There were so many pass interference calls to keep the drive alive at the very end of the game that let us cover that 7-point spread, but the bet came through. Believe it or not, the bet actually came through. And where I was going to get about even money on the payout with the 2 favorites I had, since we were taking 2 dogs on the spread, it was like a 2.5 to 1 payout. So we got insanely lucky and we actually ended up just getting a better payout than the parlay that I was planning on doing. So I had a pretty dang good weekend. I am ready for football. And I am ready for my fantasy football league. I'm pretty stoked about the team that I got in the draft. I thought you guys might enjoy that story. I try to, get out there a little bit. We got a couple of hot topics that I wanted to touch on and cover real quick here. But I thought a story might be kind of fun. One last thing I did want to make mention of is that we had a Bellator fight card last week. And man, I should have gone official. I don't know. I wanted to take a break with how bad everything was at UFC 241. I just kind of wanted to get away and take a break. And anybody that talked about it, anybody that asked me, I said multiple times that I was going to be on Sergey against Matt Mitrione. And I did go ahead and bet that fight. And Sergey came through hard, man. I absolutely should have made that an official pick. And it's really unfortunate that I didn't because I'm not going to add that to the record. I was on Sergey. I made it pretty clear on Twitter that I was on Sergey, but I did not officially state that I was going to be on Sergey. So because I'm walking that straight and narrow line, I'm not going to try and squeeze credit out of something like that. But I hope you all cashed on Sergey. He was the right choice. He was the right side. And we were getting a beautiful line on him in the main event for Bellator against Matt Mitrione. Without further ado, I will get into the fights. The UFC is headed to Shenzhen, China, and we've got a decent night of MMA action on our hands, or I guess I should say decent morning, because these things are going to start at like 3 freaking a.m. So if you actually want to watch these ones, good luck, because I won't be. I'm going to have to find a way to get a video feed and record them or something, but this is going to be a rough one because it's going to be hard to actually track. I might just have to wake up to the results and then go back on Fight Pass or ESPN Plus and check them out at my convenience a little bit later. Well, here we go. So we are going to be treading rather carefully at UFC Shenzhen for a couple of different reasons. First off, let's set the stage here. The UFC is trying to break into the Asian market. They are headed over to China. They've never had as many Chinese stars or potential stars as they do right now, and they are trying to strike while the iron is hot. I do not blame them for this, but it does give us a bit of a ragtag card. I like the main card. There's a couple of little spots that might be good fights and fun to watch on the prelims, but it's kind of bare bones. The prelims are a little slim pickings, and the first fight of the night, Karol Rosa versus Lara Procopio, is a perfect example of this. Both of these women are making their UFC debuts, and they're kicking off our main card. Neither of them have anything as far as a background goes. They're not coming from Invicta. That's not to say that they're bad or anything like that, but they're very inexperienced, very low level, and this is a fight that I'm going to say that we need to steer completely away from. If these women are going to be in the UFC moving forward, that's great. I will watch them, I will pay attention, we'll do some research, and we might do something with them their next fight, but this is one of those low-level MMA fights where you have no idea what's going to happen. I don't care what the line looks like. I don't care who's got a hot take. This is a fight that I'm staying completely away from because there is just not enough information for me to feel comfortable on it, so I'm not going to waste your time talking about it. Now, the second fight of the night is a men's flyweight battle between Heili Alateng and Danaa Batgerel, which, boy, buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is going to be brutal on the pronunciations. These names are going to send me for a loop. I'm going to butcher them, so I'm apologizing to you right now. But the second fight of the night is practically identical to the first fight of the night in so fact that I don't have enough information to feel good about either of these fighters. Now, we've got Heili, who's 12-7-1 from China. He's the hometown kid going up against Danaa, who is 6-1. Now, Danaa seems to be a relatively decent prospect based on what I've seen. But again, just very, very green. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He hasn't fought any notable names. Heili, on the other side of things, he started off with a really rough career. I mean, he alternated wins and losses and then went on a 3-fight skid and then did another alternation of win-loss before he finally put a run together. And he's coming off of a 2-fight win streak, both early KO TKOs, and he might be putting it all together, which, you know, some fighters do that. Not everybody comes right out the gate swinging and knocking people out. He had a rough start, and if he's put it all together now, you know, maybe he's finally peaking. Maybe he's finally hitting that point where he's a reliable, solid fighter, knows his way around the cage. It takes you a while to warm up sometimes. He's only 27 years old, so he's still getting better. There's always that potential. Danaa, on the flip side of this thing, he is 30 years old. His first fight was back in 2011. So he's fought, basically, he fought like once a year, and then he took a 3-year layoff, and now he's come back to 2 first-round knockouts as well. Just so many questions. So many questions. We are not touching either of these fights. So I apologize that the first 2 fights of the night are duds, but let's save our breath, let's save our time and energy for the fights that we actually care about. Moving on. For the third fight of the night. No, I'm just kidding. We actually have one that we like here. This is a great fight. We've got Damir Ismagulov taking on Thiago Moises. And I've had some practice pronouncing those 2 names if you couldn't tell. Damir is 18-2, 28 years old, taking on Moises, who is 24. 12-3. This is in the UFC's lightweight division, and you know what that means. It is gonna be a banger. That division is stacked. I love 155. So let's dig straight on into this. Damir Ismagulov is a complete monster. He's a complete monster. He's only got those 2 losses, and he's got a 4-1 amateur career on top of that. His only 2 losses, one by TKO, all the way back when he was very early, 2014, and then he lost a decision in 2015. But he's been on an incredible run since then, and he stepped into the UFC and is just continuing to wreck house. He has absolutely amazing range control. He has excellent range control. He's got that length, and you don't always see fighters utilize the length that they're born with. Some people struggle with it and they can't quite figure out how to use it as a weapon. He knows how to. He uses his long arms really well. He's got excellent top control. He's got excellent cage control. He's able to bully people against the fence, pressure them up against the cage. He scrambles really well. His wrestling is on point, top notch, and he has suffocating top control. When he gets on top of you, you are screwed. He knows how to pass. He knows how to get into better positions and make you work. If any of you have ever done any grappling, either wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu especially, when you've got a guy on top of you who knows what they're doing and knows how to use their weight on top of you, holy crap. If you put a 200-pound man on top of you, you're like, oh, dude, I've got an extra 200 on me. But if you've got someone who knows how to make you work, to make you carry their weight, it feels like you've got 400 pounds on you instead of the 2. It's incredible what some people are able to do, and that's the kind of grappling and top control that Ismagulov has and brings to the table. When he's on the feet, though, he's got heavy outside leg kicks. He's got a powerful step-in overhand right that he really likes and goes to. He's got good, solid head movement. I mean, he is the full complete package. He doesn't seem to have KO power, and that's okay. I mean, he has enough power to like hurt guys and get them where he wants them, but he's more of a point fighter on the feet. He can't quite, I mean, he hasn't shown us at least that he's able to put people out cold, and not everybody has that power, but he seems to be aware of that, and he's mixed that into his style. He doesn't gas himself out or anything like that trying to go for it. And speaking of gas tanks, his gas tank is top notch. He has a next level gas tank. This guy is a bet on fighter all the way around, and he trains out of Tiger Muay Thai, which is one of my favorite gyms. They do excellent work out there. Now, in this fight, I feel like his main path to victory, believe it or not, is gonna be on the mat. And that's saying something because Thiago Moises is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Thiago, he trains over at ATT, which is another damn solid gym. He came off of the Contender Series, and his very first fight in the UFC was Beneil Dariush. And talk about a tough test in your first fight. Coming in against Dariush is no joke. Now, he's got good solid footwork. He's really light on his feet, good movement. He attacks with submissions from the bottom. He's explosive, and he's got really heavy hands. This is one where, both of these guys are capable of doing just about everything. Well, Thiago Moises was blessed by God with that knockout power. He's got some serious pop on his punches, and he actually controls range very, very well as well. He knows how to get people on the end of his hands and uses that very, very well. And he also attacks with low calf kicks, which is something I do like to see. That's something that will slow his opponents down as the fight goes on. He'll be able to take full more advantage of that, but I don't know if he's going to have that much success using the low calf kicks in this particular spot. Physically speaking, Damir Ismagulov is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, and that's going to play a lot, I feel like, in this fight. When you've got two guys that can both use the range, that are both long, trying to stab at each other, they're jousting a little bit with their punches, Ismagulov's going to get there first. Thiago Moises is going to be at a severe disadvantage because of that 4-inch reach. It's almost like Jon Jones, where he just seems to have that human physical form that gives him the advantage. My cousin Judd, the one I had on the podcast not too long ago, he calls it cheat codes. He's like, Jon Jones has got cheat codes that nobody else has, and it's just that physical stature. That's what we're going to be dealing with here. Now, as far as the stats go, you all know I'm a stats guy when the stats matter, and in this case, I feel like they do. Significant strikes per minute, 3.27. 3.27 for Damir Ismagulov, and he lands at a 40% accuracy rating. He only absorbs 1.6 strikes per minute, significant strikes per minute. He's got a 69% striking defense. That is impressive as hell. He hits and doesn't get hit back. Now, he averages 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. So he's getting almost one takedown per round at a 45% accuracy rate. We flip this thing over and head over to Thiago Moises. He averages 3.2 significant strikes landed per minute. So very, very close to Ismagulov's. I mean, he's got a 53% accuracy. So his accuracy is slightly higher than Ismagulov's, but he absorbs 2.79 significant strikes per minute. So he is absorbing way more significant strikes than Ismagulov is. He's got a 53% striking defense, but those numbers are so close. The gap between the significant strikes landed and then the significant strikes absorbed for Ismagulov is massive here. Now, Thiago Moises does average 1.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, so he doesn't do quite as much grappling, but he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt once it does hit the mat. He's got a 50% accuracy, and he's got a 57% takedown defense. So I feel like the stats show us that Damir is better basically everywhere. Now, we do have to take into account strength of schedule, and I mean, Beneil Dariush really is damaging to Thiago Moises. He was a great first fight for him. I mean, impressive that he was able to go that far, that long with a guy like Dariush. He lost a decision. There's no shame in that. But Damir hasn't exactly fought cupcakes either. Alex George and Joel Alvarez, I mean, they're not bad levels of competition. They're not Beneil Dariush, but these guys are no joke either. I mean, Alex is 7-1, and then Joel is 16-2. Both of them are solid young fighters. I think all of this basically comes down to the fact that Damir Ismagulov is the clear favorite to win here. Now, he is a favorite on the betting odds as well, but I love this price. We can get him as low as minus 185 right now, and I just think he rolls here. I'm not underestimating Thiago Moises. He is a live dog. Plus 160, that's where you want to bet this kid. He's training out of ATT. He's young. He's going to be improving. He's hungry. He does have a solid skill set. He's got that knockout power. He's got that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But he likes to jump on necks. He likes to work off of his back. And those are two things that I think are going to really hurt him in this fight against Ismagulov, because if you dive on that neck, you are not going to choke out Ismagulov. I'm sorry, you're just not. And if you're okay with working off your back because you're comfortable with your ground game, that's fine. Damir's just going to ride out on top of you and win an easy decision. So I've got a couple of holes that I think Damir is going to be able to take advantage of with Thiago. I think Thiago is going to be an incredible fighter and offer us some massive value down the road. I just think this one ain't it. So the pick is Damir Ismagulov. I like him to win, and we will do something with him a little bit later. You can get him right now at minus 185, and I like that, but you all know how I roll. We're not paying minus 185 on this spot. We are going to take things a little bit carefully this weekend, just like I told you. I did say for a couple reasons, but I only listed one. So some of the other reasons here is next week is UFC 242. This is going to be a huge fight card. So I want to make sure we do a little bit of damage control this week. Now, I'm always confident in my picks. I always pick spots that I like, but I don't want to be rapid firing on a low level card where lots of crazy shit can happen when we want to save some of those units for a big week next weekend. So I'm going to have some picks. We're going to have some spots that we like, but I want to keep it a little bit tight to the vest. So Ismagulov, minus 185. We are going to use him in a parlay. Hold that thought. The next fight up takes us to the big boys, the light heavyweight division, where Jung takes on Khadis Ibragimov. I'm going to go with Ibragimov. So Jung is 25 years old. He is 10-2-0, taking on Khadis, who is 24-8-0. This is another fight that we are steering way clear from. We are getting nowhere near this fight. This is one that I want to sit back and watch. I want to pay attention because both of these fighters look like they may have a little bit of prospect future here. Khadis is a massive favorite. He's sitting right around minus 300 right now, 8-0. The dude fights out of freaking Russia. He's an Bragmadov, and rightfully so. You know, when you've got these Russian murderers coming over, they tend to murk people, and Jun-yong might just be in a little bit of trouble. Now, he's 10-2 himself, though, and he is a hell of a puncher. He's won a whole bunch of his fights early on as well, so this is going to be a volatile fight. Might look at it under for this one. But besides that, I would say to steer clear, grab your popcorn, and just enjoy the show on this one. After one foray with the big boys, we are headed straight back down the ladder to 135 bantamweight, where Mudaerji, the Tibetan Eagle, dude out of China. He's getting his second shot at a UFC fight. He had his debut against Luis Smolka where he got armbarred in the second round. He's 9-3, but he's only 23 years old. So this is one of those spots where promising young kid, but he's hit kind of a rough spot. He had a rough first go in the UFC. Who knows if he's ready for this level or not, but we're in China, so the UFC might just be going, we need Chinese fighters on the roster, so let's throw this guy another fight in the UFC and see how he does. He is taking on the Asian sensation, Andre Soukhamthath. Andre is 13-7-0, and he has had a bit of a rough road himself. He's 4-2 in the UFC, and he's kind of the ultimate low-level gate holder. I'm gonna put it that way. All credit where it's due, but he really is like a gatekeeper in the UFC for the bottom tier rather than being a gatekeeper for a title shot. If you can't beat Andre Soukhamthath, you really don't belong in the UFC, but he seems to be holding his job to serve that purpose. They keep throwing these prospects to him and seeing how they do. I find it kind of hilarious. So Su was completely outclassed by Smolka. I mean, just top to bottom, he was rolled over by Smolka. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's really skinny, tall, and long, but he seems to have a bit of Achilles heel on the ground. He scrambles well. He seems like he's opportunistic on the mat, but I haven't seen anything that's really impressed me. I mean, I know he's dangerous. I know he can, he can at least threaten submissions on the ground, but he hasn't really done anything to show me he's competitive on the ground at the UFC level. Now, he swings wild. He lunges in with these long shots. Now, he does have really long arms, so that's kind of part of his style, is that he's able to dart in and try and hit his opponents before they can respond. Soukhamthath, on the other side of this thing, he's so questionable. I don't really know what to do with this guy. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's got a relatively well-rounded skill set. He's got big power at short range, but he struggles at distance. And that's where this fight gets interesting, because Sue seems to do very well at distance, where Andre's going to have the advantage once they get in close. But once they do get in close, he's got big power. Now, he does have a bit of a problem because he absorbs way more significant strikes that he lands. He has that ability to, or not that ability, but that style where he's willing to take 2 or 3 to give 1, and that never works out. I mean, if you've got that fight-ending power, which I think actually Soukhamthath does, then okay, but it doesn't work forever. If you're willing to take 1 to land 1, that's okay. But when you're taking 2 or 3 to land 1, that will be a problem. Now, we're not talking about him in the deep end here. He's not even in the middle end of the UFC. This is the bottom end of the UFC, so that strategy might work out okay here. He is known for his phenomenally bad fight IQ against Sean O'Malley. He should have won that fight when Sean O'Malley hurt his foot, but instead he went for a takedown and made it a grappling match, so that he ended up losing a decision, a unanimous decision, when he could have just tried to make Sean O'Malley stand with him and rough him up when he only had 1 foot to stand on. Bad call. Now, he did wipe everybody's memory of that clean with his win over Jonathan Martinez, but then he dropped uninspiring performance against Montel Jackson. He's had a rough road, and Montel Jackson is a good fighter. He's 8-1, so I mean, he's gonna be something moving forward here, so I don't want to completely poo-poo that loss. That is one of the young up-and-coming stars, like Sean O'Malley, like Alejandro Perez. Those are the guys where I'm not surprised he lost to them, and they were competitive fights even though he did lose to them. So Soukhamthath, I feel like, is a little better than his record shows, and he does have just a little bit of an issue putting it all together. Now, he does have a 66% takedown accuracy and a 62% takedown defense, both of which I think will factor in here, because if he can get on top of Sue and keep Sue from, scrambling or reversing, he's going to have a huge advantage here. I've got Andre Soukhamthath here for the win. The problem is, I hate the price. He's a -175 favorite. You can get him as low as -170 over at BetOnline, but that's not where you want Soukhamthath. He has shown us that he's had bad fight IQ a couple of times, and because of that, you can't lay this kind of a price on him. If I was getting -130 on Soukhamthath, I think I'd be all over him, because I really think he wins this fight here. He is fighting a young up-and-coming fighter that might make some improvements, that might prove me wrong, and really step up his game here and show me something, but that's exactly why we're not going to take this line. I thought about using Soukhamthath in a parlay to bring that price down, but I don't trust him enough to even do that. Taking the approach, not the, I love this guy so much, I'm going to parlay him because I know he's going to win, but the price dropping approach, I can't trust Soukhamthath enough to do that. I don't want to squander a unit betting here. I really think Andre Soukhamthath wins this thing, even just by landing the bigger, stronger bombs over Sue that will add up in the judge's eyes. I think he gets the decision here, but I'm not going to tell you to put your money on it. All right, we're kind of ping-ponging around this fight. We're headed back up to middleweight, where Park Jun-yong, 9-3-0, 28 years old, is taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, 7-1-0. Fluffy is 25 years old, and he has got one of my favorite nicknames in MMA. I absolutely love it. It reminds me of the comedian Fluffy, so I get a good little laugh out of it every single time I hear that. I hear the joke where he does the 5 stages of fat, and then at the end it's fluffy. Like when you're the biggest version, you're fluffy. I've got a fluffy best friend, so we have a good one. We have a good laugh over that skit. So anyway, sorry, sidebar. Jung-yong Park is a South Korean fighter, so he's kind of the hometown kid here. I mean, I'm not going to say that, he's Asian, so they're going to like him better. That's not really how that works. But he's closer geographically speaking, so he may have a little bit of hometown push here versus Anthony Hernandez, who trains out of MMA Gold Fight Team over here in the States. Now, Jung-yong Park trains out of World Top Team as opposed to American Top Team, which I suppose means it's better. No, I'm kidding. I have no idea. He's been on a decent win streak over here, but he's fought a really, really low level of competition over in the Asian market. One thing that he does have going for him is that he uses his jab very, very well, and he does have good accuracy. He's a strong, explosive striker, but he's fought a low level competition, and when you've got power like that, you really stand out when you face a lower level of competition. The thing that he does that bothers me is he stands square straight in front of his opponents. It's kind of like maybe like an old school Mike Perry when he first got into the UFC, where he was just like, no, F you, I'm standing here and you're gonna go to sleep. That's kind of how this guy fights. He steps in front of you. He's not looking to get off the center line. He's not looking to stick and move. And he just wants to stand there and bang until you drop. Now, Hernandez, he's got great forward pressure. One of the things I noticed about him is he has excellent takedown defense and great balance. He does the thing where you get that one foot like up over his head and you still aren't going to get him to fall on his butt to take him down. Good luck taking this guy down. Now, I know that's not really going to factor in this fight because Park is more than likely not going to go for any type of takedowns. As I said, he stands toe-to-toe with you, and he looks to land that knockout blow. Now, Fluffy fights really, really well at range. He uses his reach extraordinarily well, and he's only got 2 knockouts out of his 7 wins. He's actually got 4 submissions. He's got more subs than he does knockouts. But I think he's a better striker than he is a grappler. The way he fought against Jordan Wright and Marcus Perez on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and then Marcus Perez in his UFC debut, he looked really freaking good against Perez in his UFC debut until he got caught on the ground. He was doing a lot of things that I like to see. Now, Perez is a guy who we can look at for a measuring stick. He has wins over guys like Paulo Thiago, Ian Heinz, and then he fought Anthony Hernandez, Andrew Sanchez, James and Eric Anders over here in the UFC. He did lose to Andrew Sanchez and Eric Anders, but if that gives us kind of a measuring stick of where this guy is, he's kind of a mid-tier UFC level fighter, and those aren't bad losses. Now, you flip this back over to Jung-yong Park, and the opposition that he has fought is nowhere near this level, and he's dropping these guys with big old bombs. I mean, Glim Sparov, he's not bad, but he's 19-6. John Vake is 10-5. Then he fought Koji, and that guy's 5-7. I know that this is not the best way to handicap fights by looking at people's records and things like that, but there is a severe difference in the competition level for these two guys. And Fluffy, I think, is a future star. I mean, I really think, maybe not a star, maybe star is the wrong term, but he definitely is skilled. He's definitely going to work his way up the chain. I think he's a future prospect. And just because he got choked out by a guy like Marcus Perez in his UFC debut, everybody's got the jitters. Everybody gets under those bright lights and has a hard time the first time. The UFC is handing him a guy that's going to stand in front of him. This is one of those ones where I feel like we're on the same side as the UFC. I think the UFC is going, hey, we like this kid. Let's get him a winnable fight. He's coming off the Contender Series, and you know they like to push those guys because they've got that extra edge. Everyone loves the Contender Series, so they want those guys to do well and to succeed. Jung-yong Park at 9-3 coming in here. I don't think they're looking to push this guy. I don't think they're looking to make something of Jung-yong Park. And like I said, I just think he's kind of the perfect opponent here. Now, the line is kind of the thing I don't like. Most of the money has come in on Park. I do think it opened a little bit wide. Anthony Hernandez minus 190 with the comeback on Park at plus 165. And 60% of the money has come in on Park, driving that down to plus 145. He's as low as plus 135 in places. And you can get Hernandez at minus 165. And I'm kind of torn here because I really think Hernandez wins this one. But I don't know if I like that price. I don't know if I want to lay minus 165 on him in this spot. If you could give me like a minus 130, a minus 140 maybe, something in that range, I would really, really love it. Because, I mean, realistically, Hernandez is 25 years old. I do think he's going to get better. I do think he's going to improve. But Park does have that fight-ending power. So this is a tough one that I'm going to show a little bit of self-control. Like I said, we're looking ahead to next week. We've got our eyes on the prize here. We want to lock up some extra units, but we don't want to get crazy and give anything away. My gut tells me that Fluffy wins this thing, but Jung-yong Park has that crazy power, and in Hernandez's last fight, he did get lit up a couple times by Marcus Perez. Park doesn't have any losses by KO, so I'm not worried about his damage, his chin, anything like that. And Hernandez blitzing in the way that he does is gonna leave him open for counters by Park. And when you've got power the way that Park does, you're welcoming that blitz. You're like, come on in, dude. He's just going to try and piece off a little counter there, an uppercut or something as he blitzes in and call it a day. So I just think this fight is a little too volatile. It's a little too unpredictable, and we are going to go ahead and pass. Unfortunately, I wanted to give you a pick on this one. I really did. If money keeps coming in on Park, I will take Fluffy if this thing gets down to like a pick'em. I don't think it's going to go quite that far because I think people are going to be a little too respectful of Hernandez for it to get quite that out of hand. But if it did, we'd circle back and talk about this again. We are sticking around the upper mid-level weight classes. Welterweight, the main event of the preliminary card, the final prelim fight. It's a long prelim card on this one. Kenan Song, 14-4, is taking on Derrick D-Rock Krantz, who is 22-11. And this is one of those fights that is going to be a real fan-friendly fight. I think it's one that's going to be a sleeper. Well, not necessarily a sleeper for fight of the night, but you know what I mean. There's a fight later on this card that should be hands down fight of the night, but this one has a sneaky little chance of taking it away. Kenan Song has got some serious power in his hands. He's got a really tight boxing style defensive game. He keeps his hands up near his chin, protecting himself really, really well. He's got a good get-up game, so I'm not overly concerned if this thing does happen to get to the mat. He's got the ability to get back to his feet. He does seem to struggle with people that have really good, slick movement, though. He seems to get a little bit frustrated by that, not being able to catch, not being able to cut his opponents off, stuff like that. But I'm not sure that's going to be too much of an issue in this spot. Now, Derrick D-Rock Krantz, he's a hometown hero type of fighter. He's coming in here and he is physically very, very strong. He's got heavy hands, constant forward pressure. He's always coming forward looking for the knockout, but he really seems to rely on his toughness. He does tend to get into a little bit of submission trouble. He's a good wrestler. He tries to stay safe, but every once in a while, it seems like he always gets in submission trouble in all of his fights. There's always that moment where it's like, oh, here he goes. I mean, sometimes he more often than not, he gets out of it, but it seems to be kind of a regular thing, which kind of gives me a little bit of concern. Now, if he does get on top of you, he's got some excellent ground and pound. Like I said, very heavy hands. And when he presses you up against the cage, he does have excellent cage control, and he uses his head well to like force his opponent into positions that they don't want to be in, make sure they stay where he wants them, and then rough them up. This is a really, really tough fight for me to call. This line opened up with Song being a relatively decent-sized favorite. There was some dog money on Derrick Krantz, and everybody in the Twitter MMA betting community is hammering Derrick D-Rock. And that's something that I find almost a little concerning. It might be kind of a mush type situation I'm a little worried about because Song is no joke. This is a fight that I'm going to stay away from simply because if you want to bet Krantz, the value is gone. It is too close to call. I like D-Rock. I think he's a decent fighter, but I'm not sure he's on the level of Song. Song also has some question marks around him, but he's got some serious KO power. I think these guys are going to stand and trade. If Derrick decides that he wants to wrestle and have this fight more often than not up against the cage, I think he will sneak out a decision. So that's where I'm kind of concerned. I really don't want want to lay the price with Song, but I also don't want to bet Krantz after all that dog money is gone. If you got him at like plus 145 or something like that, good on you. That's a nice line for this fight. If the money continues to pour in, I might have to take a flyer on Song, because if it flips and I get dog money on Song, that might be a spot that I'm interested in. But for now, unfortunately, we're just going to go ahead and have to pass. I'm going to keep my eyes out on this whole card for totals, so keep an eye on my Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. I will be looking for totals once they get released later on in the week, because I think there's a couple spots that rather than picking a side on it, we're going to be more successful picking on the over-unders. I think with the type of finishing ability that both Song and Krantz are capable of, we might get a decent spot on an over 1.5, because I think both of them will be tough enough to withstand the type of brutalization that they're both capable of putting out. So I'm curious where they're going to line that, but I may be looking at over 1.5 in this fight. So we'll see. Keep in touch. Keep your eye out. We kick the main card of UFC Shenzhen off with Yanan Wu taking on Mizuki Inoue. Yanan Wu is 10-2-0. She's only 23 years old, and Inoue on the other side of things is 25. We have got a Japan versus China matchup here. Yanan Wu is Mulan. Her fight name is Mulan, which I freaking love that movie. Good call, Wu. She's 10-2, and she's 1-1 in the UFC so far. She got absolutely trucked by Gina Mazany. Gina Mazany stepped in there and showed her absolutely zero respect and just ground on her for the entire fight. It was completely one-sided, and Wu did not know what she was in for. Now, she bounced back really well against Lauren Mueller. She locked up an armbar submission in the first round in that fight. Really solid, and I think the UFC is really trying to push Wu here. This is a good opportunity for them to get her in front of her hometown crowd and give her a real shine. Mizuki Inoue on the other side of things is 13-5. She's only 25 years old also, so she is very young and capable herself. She comes to us from Invicta, and she's got a couple of wins over there, which, that's kind of the premier women's division before you get to the UFC. She fought names like Karolina Kovacevic, Alexa Grasso, so she's got some serious names on her record. Beck Rawlings. Now, I know Rawlings isn't very good, but that was in 2013, and she's only 25 years old. She's been fighting for a long time for how young she is. She's got really fast hands. She's got good footwork, solid counters, and she really likes to control the center of the cage. That's something I noticed right away. She likes to keep her middle foot right there in the center and make sure she has command of the octagon. She's got good passes, and she has good top control whenever she's on the ground. She really likes to bully her opponents around. The only problem with this is that Mizuki Inoue is moving up from 115 pounds to fight Yanan Wu at 125 pounds. So she has exactly the skill set, exactly the style of exactly what Gina Mazany did to Yanan Wu, which she struggled with in her UFC debut. So I think that Inoue is going to be able to get in here and do basically the same thing and grind a decision out. But the fact that she's going to be the smaller of the two fighters, or it's going to be very similar in size because she's coming up from a lower weight class, I don't know if she's going to have the strength advantage here. So, unfortunately, this is another pass situation. I think Inoue is going to win this thing. I think. But I also hate the line again. Now, they opened up as a pick'em, and if you were able to get short money on Inoue, good freaking job. Props to my guy, UFC Bro Picks. He got on her early, and I do like that bet. But now she's sitting as around minus 140, minus 145, and that's just too big of a favorite in this spot. If you got to pick them, if you got dog money on Inoue, even minus 115, something like that, that's a good spot. If we're getting up in the minus 140s, minus 150s, that's just way too much juice to lay in this spot because it's going to be close. And if it's going to be close, I'm always worried that the hometown girl is going to get the decision. Yanan Wu is someone the UFC is trying to push in her home country. This is a good spot for her. And if she fights even slightly close, she's gonna get the nod. So I'm not gonna lay a unit and a half to win one unit when we're at a severe disadvantage as far as geographically speaking goes. If it's gonna be a close, hairy fight and it was on neutral territory or we were in Japan, I'd be on Mizuki all day. But we're not. We're in China. And that means things could get a little bit hairy, and if it's a close fight, we might lose that one. So I'm going to steer clear because of that. We'll keep an eye on this one too as things get a little bit closer to fight time because, you never know. Things could change, and if more money comes in on Wu, if the local crowd starts betting her, we might get a price on Inoue that we can't deny, but we'll see what happens. Now I'm going to keep this next one short and sweet. Movsar Evloev, 11-0, 25 years old, is facing Zhenhong Liv, and Zhenhong is a last-minute, short-notice replacement here because Mike Grundy fell out. Now that was a hell of a fight. I really wanted to see Evloev versus Grundy, but it's not going to happen. Instead, we get Movsar versus this guy, and Movsar is a stunning 11-0, and this fight is actually a rematch. This is one of the first fights that Evloev was able to actually win, and Zhen and Liu has apparently kind of put it together since then. Now, he did lose his last fight, but it was via split decision, so that was a close one, and he was on a real solid win run before that. So this fight has me a little bit spooked because I think Evloev just runs train here. His opponent is a last-minute short notice, and that never really bears well for the guy coming in short notice. That's not true. Plenty of people have stepped in and won by knockout at the last second. So what I'm nervous about here is that this guy's coming back for vengeance. Evloev is the biggest favorite on the card, and rightfully so in my opinion. He's a monster. He's a machine. He is, you know what, Will Martin called him a demon, and I love that. I was like, that is probably the most accurate description you could get for this kid. He is a problem. He's going to be a future title contender. I can smell it on him. He comes from a freaking Russia, 135-pound machine, and he's a finisher too. So I really think that he's deserving of being the favorite here, but it's gotten out of hand. He was about minus 400, and I was going to suggest him as a parlay piece around there, but so much money has come in on him. He's all the way up to minus 1,000 over at Bookmaker. He's minus 700. The lowest you can get him is minus 655. This line is just nuts. Liu, who has apparently put it together in his career, is stepping in here for vengeance, and he's got some knockout power behind him. I do think Evloev grinds out the win here, but I'm not touching minus 700. We're not even going to bother parlaying it, especially when you've got a local Chinese fighter who seems to be hitting his stride, who's got knockout power. Half of his 16 wins have come by KO TKO. Not something I want to mess with. Evloev grinds him out. I guarantee it. But the line is such crap at this point, there's nothing we can do with it. All right, we are almost at the end of this thing. We're headed to flyweight where Kai Kara France 19-7-0 takes on Mark De La Rosa 11-2. And this might be potentially my favorite spot on the entire card as far as a betting perspective is concerned. You all know how I roll. Let's get into this thing. Kai Kara France, first off, his name is Don't Blink. You got to wonder if he named himself with that one. You never name yourself, dude. Never name yourself. Someone else has got to do it for you. So, I don't know. Maybe they named him Don't Blink because his first two... I'm sorry. That doesn't even make sense either. I was going to say his first two wins came by knockout in the first round, but his first win came by knockout. His second was a loss by knockout in the first round. So he was kind of die hard, live by the sword, die by the sword. So I guess Don't Blink works then if even your losses come quick. Anyway, let's move on. One thing about Kai Kara France is he really leaves his neck open when he comes in for takedowns. He trains out of Tiger Muay Thai, which we've already established. I really like Tiger Muay Thai. He's got good footwork. He's fast. He's light on his feet. He comes in and out really well. He's evolving as a striker, and he comes from us out of New Zealand. I think he is incredibly overrated. I'm just going to say that straight out. I'm not going to give you a bunch of foo-foo around that, the different things he's good at. He's got good movement. He's got good speed. When he's fighting at a low level, you can see him TKO these guys. He gets on top of them and he just pounds them out. He's got really quick hands. But since he's been in the UFC, he's been very, very underwhelming, and he's also fought a really low level of competition. Mark De La Rosa on the other side of this thing is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got a stalking forward pressure. He throws heavy counters. He uses calf kicks to slow his opponents down, which I think is going to be a key in this fight. If he goes to the calf kick and can get Kai Kara moving just a little bit slower, he's going to be easy pickings. Now, Mark De La Rosa does have some big shots on him. He's kind of a Damian Maia-esque fighter where his strength really is the ground game, so he throws kind of recklessly on the feet because he doesn't really care how that pans out. When he counters, he throws heavy. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to do too much as far as striking with Kara-France goes. I think this is a striker versus grappler type of matchup. But one thing about Mark De La Rosa that really pushes me over the edge here on this pick is that he finally is taking his strength and conditioning seriously. He's been fighting this whole time and he's gone 11-1 without really taking his conditioning seriously. He said himself in a recent interview that one of his favorite fighters, someone who he wants to emulate his style after, is freaking Colby Covington. And now if you take Colby Covington and you add a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, that is what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, I don't think he's going to be able to achieve that. He's not quite at that level yet, but if that's the goal, that's a damn good style for him to be looking for. His 2 losses came to Tim Elliott and Alex Perez. Now, Tim Elliott is a veteran of the sport. He's been around for a long time, and when it comes to MMA grappling, he's got a really solid ground game. So even though De La Rosa is a black belt, getting subbed by a guy like Tim Elliott 2 years ago is not a real bad thing. Plus, that was his UFC debut, which is another big step up for a UFC debut. Now, they have a common opponent in Elias Garcia. Kara-France had kind of an uninspiring decision win over Elias, whereas Mark De La Rosa took him down and choked him out in the second round. He won over Jacoby Sanchez, and then he lost to Alex Perez. And Alex Perez is a complete beast. We've seen what this guy can do, and he is a machine. He's something to look forward to. So the level of competition has been far higher for Mark De La Rosa, and even though he lost to Tim Elliott and Perez, he had a good showing of himself. The fact that he's moving down from 135 to 125, he's taken his strength and conditioning seriously, I think he's going to be the stronger fighter. I think he's going to have more takedown success, and if this thing gets scrambly, he's really good at taking backs. So Kara is really going to have to watch his P's and Q's. The only way I see Kara-France winning this thing is if he sticks in moves and stays on his bike the entire fight. And I don't know if he is going to be capable of doing that. So based on all of that, I'm taking the stab on the dog. We can get Mark De La Rosa at plus 165, and I love it. Now, he did open up closer to plus 200, so I wish we had gotten that. But as you all know, I have a strict Tuesday-only policy. I take the lines as they are available on Tuesday for the show. If I bet something early, I either don't track it, or I will announce it and I'll let you guys know so that you can jump on that line if I'm expecting it to move. I didn't know that the Mark De La Rosa line was going to move as heavily as it did. I kind of wish I had tweeted that one out for everybody, but I also wasn't certain I was going to make that play just yet. So even though we're losing a little bit of value here, plus 165 for this kind of a fight, I actually think is really awesome. I like the bigger fighter dropping down a weight class, and I think he's going to be just far more natural at 125 because he was kind of a small 135er, and you see that when guys get serious about their strength and conditioning. They realize they're fighting a weight class up because they're just not taking it seriously enough and they're just not being professional enough. So if he's got more gas in the tank, if he is stronger, if he's the slightly bigger man, he goes down, he chokes out Kara-France. Give me the dog. Mark De La Rosa plus 165. Now we come to the co-main event of the evening. Jingliang 16-5-0, one of China's favorite sons and a favorite among the UFC fandom because dang, this guy comes to fight basically every single time, versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos 21-5, hailing from Brazil. Oh, this is going to be a fight. This is the one that I was mentioning a little bit earlier when I said we are in for a treat. Fight of the night is all but locked up because of this. These two guys are coming to war. Jingliang, the Leech, is 16-5, and we're fighting at welterweight, by the way, 170. Now, Jingliang has been in the UFC for quite some time. He's been fighting since all the way back in 2014. So we want to look at kind of his more recent run, and he's actually been doing pretty freaking well. He went on a 4-fight win streak before he ran into Jake Matthews, dropped that decision, and then he had a 2-fight win streak right after that. Elizeu Zaleski, on the other hand, is probably one of the fastest rising stars in this division, and people think he's going to be knocking on that top 10 and potentially top 5 very, very quickly. He's 21-5, and he's undefeated since his UFC debut in 2015, where he dropped a split decision. The dude has been on an absolute tear, and he's really putting it together. His last 3 wins over Sean Strickland, Luigi, I'm not going to try and say that last name, and Curtis Millender, he put them all away in under 1.5 rounds. He's finishing people, and he's really starting to put it all together. I am so stoked for this fight. Now, the catch here is that these guys are very comparable as far as their stats go, and I think this is a spot where the stats tend to lie. Jingliang happens to outpace his opponents. He outstrikes his opponents. He does not absorb as much damage as he lands. He's got some serious knockout power. He's well-rounded on the ground. You could say the exact same thing for Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Elizeu Zaleski lands more than he absorbs, and he's very good on the ground. As could be seen by his last win over Curtis Millender, that first round submission. Oof. He knows what he's doing down there. I think Jingliang, jeez, did I add too many? I'm saying Jingliang. This whole time I've been adding an extra ling in there. My bad. The Leech's path to victory in this fight is to make this a brawl. If he goes skill for skill, toe to toe with Elizeu dos Santos, he is going to have a very bad night. Dos Santos is one of those guys that's just, he's crisp and skilled and well-rounded everywhere. If you go to the ground, he's gonna choke you out. If he gets on top of you, he will pound you out. If you want to stand and trade with him, he's got some serious explosive power. I don't think that Lee can hang with him style for style. Now, if Lee wants to bite down on his mouthpiece and trust in his chin, now we're talking about upset territory. That's a problem. If Zaleski decides that he wants to engage in a brawl, he gives the Leech an opportunity to win this fight. But as long as he avoids that brawl, I think Zaleski wins this dang thing. I think he wins it running away. Right now, Elizeu Zaleski is sitting at about minus 280, and believe it or not, I think that's accurate. You might say that line's high, but I think it's accurate, because as long as he doesn't engage in a chin versus chin type of matchup, as long as he stays technical and keeps this thing going on a one-on-one skill for skill type of battle, he should win this thing. Now, the comeback on Jingliang is plus 240. If you want to take a stab at that plus 240 for a puncher's chance, go right ahead. I don't blame you whatsoever. But something that I want to make mention of real quick here is the level of competition, where it seems like Jingliang has struggled. Now, back in 2015, I know that's going a decent bit back, he lost by submission to Keita Nakamura. Now, Nakamura is a solid fighter, but he's got a 500 record in the UFC. He's alternating wins and losses, okay? He does put a decent win run together, but it's over guys like Bobby Nash, Frank Camacho, Zach Otto. I mean, he's fighting guys who are decent. Not guys who are great, but guys who are decent. And then he runs into Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews gives him all he can handle. And I'm high on Jake Matthews. I think Jake Matthews is a future potential star. I think he's got some serious upside going forward. Now, the last 2 wins where Jing has managed to clear his opponents out quickly have come against David Sagat-Zawada, who's 16-5, and then Anton Zafir, the professor, who is 8-4. So anytime that Lee has taken a step up, anytime he's dipped his toe in that slightly next level of competition, that's where it all falls apart for him and he tends to lose. You can see that all the way back through his career. Dos Santos is a huge step up. Dos Santos is a mountain to climb. This dude's got it all going for him. And I really think that he basically just has this thing on lock as long as he doesn't do anything stupid. So you remember we talked about Damir and we were going to use him in a parlay a little bit later. That's right. We are closing that parlay here with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. You can get him at minus 280, and that's going to give us my absolute favorite, just a slight positive payout. We're going to get plus 109 on this parlay, ladies and gentlemen, and that is going to be our parlay for UFC Shenzhen. I love this parlay. This is one of those ones where I am fairly confident that both of these guys are going to win the fights, and I think we're doing a good job of bringing the price down here. In fact, I believe we're going to make this a 2-unit parlay. And folks, if you're new to the Die Hard MMA podcast, I have only recently started doing 2-unit picks, and as soon as I have, we've seen massive success on them. So when I feel committed enough to a pick to make it a 2-unit pick, we have a 100% finish rate. Now, don't sell your car and go put your house on this thing because I said that. That's not how this works. We still emphasize strong, smart bankroll management. Make sure you are not overextending yourself on any play because this is mixed martial arts. Somebody can slip on a banana peel, somebody can get head kicked, and the night can be over just that quick. But I love this parlay. I think this is a great spot. I think both of these guys win their fights relatively handily and getting just better than even money. I want 2 units on it. We're going 2 units on this parlay. That brings us to the main event of the evening where Jessica Andrade, the current champion, takes on Weili Zhang. And this is a fight. Wow. I'm looking forward to this one way more than I expected to. Weili Zhang is one of the hottest prospects right now in the women's strawweight division, and taking on Jessica Andrade, who is the hottest thing since sliced cheese after she stole that belt from Rose Namajunas. My heart still hurts a little bit. We had Rose in that one, and she was doing everything right up until that second round slam KO that was just hard to watch and heartbreaking. So we are going to try and brush the dust off us and get back into this thing here in this main event where So the biggest thing that Andrade has going for her is her physicality. She is incredibly strong for this division. Weili Zhang may be one of the only fighters in the division who can match her for power, basically. She's going to have 2 inches on her. She's going to be the bigger, taller woman in there. But that's something that Jessica Andrade has actually dealt with for the majority of her career. Almost all of her recent fights have been against someone who have been taller than her. So let's start off with the champion. Jessica Andrade is 7-1 in her last 8, with that lone loss coming to Joanna Champion. And losing a 5-round decision to Joanna, there is absolutely zero shame in that. And way before that, it wasn't until Raquel Pennington beat her back in 2015 that she lost. She has wins over Rose Namajunas, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Tecia Torres, Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill, Jojo Calderwood, Jessica Benet. She has beaten everyone that there is to beat. And I know I just said Raquel Pennington subbed her, but she actually won the first fight with Raquel Pennington. So they are 1-1. She is everything. She has fought everybody. The highest level of competition you can possibly have in that division is held by Jessica Andrade, and now she holds the belt. Not only that, but I thought she was going to come up short in her chance to get the belt because I thought Namajunas was the most well-rounded, best fighter in that division, and she was. However, Jessica Andrade has the great equalizer, which is her insane power at that class, where she just dumped Namajunas on her head so hard that we thought her neck had broken. This chick is a monster. She's a beast like no other. She is on another level. Weili Zhang is a very hot prospect coming out of China. She's 30 years old. She's 19-1, and her only 3 UFC fights have been against Danielle Taylor, Jessica Aguilar, and then she had a decision win over Tecia Torres. Now, I thought Tecia was going to get it done against her, and we were wrong there. But Tecia Torres is not what we thought she was. Her last fight, which we bet on her against Marina Rodriguez, showed us yet again that I think Tecia is a lesser gatekeeper than we expected her to be. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from Zhang because I actually really like Zhang and I'm high on her, but she's only got 3 fights in the UFC. She does have an insanely impressive record. She's physically strong, she's powerful, she's big, but she fought Jessica Aguilar and Danielle Taylor before she fought Tecia Torres. Compare those to the names of Karolina, Tecia, Claudia, Rose, Joanna. Oh my God. I mean, there's no comparison. There is absolutely no comparison in their levels of competition. Let's look at the stats, all right? Weili Zhang has an impressive strikes per minute of 5.49, okay? And she only absorbs 2.17 significant strikes per minute. That is incredibly impressive. The differential in the significant strikes landed versus absorbed is phenomenal. And she's got a 100% takedown defense rate. The problem, again, is her level of competition. That's what she is supposed to do against that particular level of competition. They're not supposed to be able to hurt her. They're not supposed to be able to hit her. She's had a height and reach advantage over every single one of those girls, and Danielle Taylor, with her speed, gave her problems. Jessica Andrade is so much faster, is bigger, and hits harder than Danielle Taylor. She's the same for Tecia Torres. She is bigger, she is faster, she's more explosive, and she hits harder. Looking at Andrade's stats, she has an incredible 6.55 significant strikes landed per minute output with 51% accuracy. Now, she does absorb 5.13 significant strikes per minute for a 52% striking defense, but that includes 25 minutes with Joanna. Okay, now I'm no mathematician, unfortunately. I'm not the guy that's going to be able to play with those numbers for you, but I have a sinking feeling that if you pull Joanna out of that, the 25 minutes against Joanna, who has one of the highest outputs in women MMA history, I'm pretty sure that number is going to look a whole lot better. Now, she averages 3.22 takedowns per 15 minutes. So she's averaging more than one takedown every 15 minutes with a 58% takedown accuracy. She has a 76% takedown defense rate herself. What that means is she is the most output fighter Zhang will have ever fought. I can guarantee you that she is stronger than anybody Zhang has ever fought. I can guarantee you she hits harder than anybody Zhang has ever fought. And she's also going to put Zhang's takedown defense to the test because she comes in hard, she comes in often, and she gets those takedowns. Jessica Andrade is the queen of women's strawweight right now, and I don't see her losing for a very, very long time. Weili Zhang is in a very precarious position. The UFC is pushing China. They want to go to China. They want to open up that avenue. They want more fans. They want to get the name out there. She is Dan Hardy in this situation. Dan Hardy was the guy that they threw to GSP after getting a couple of impressive knockout wins because he was fun and he had a ton of hype around him. They were using him to crack into that British market. That's exactly what's happening here. Weili Zhang is not ready for this. Weili Zhang needs to fight somebody other than Tecia Torres, who's a top contender, before she really deserves this title shot. I think she's got all the tools. Physically speaking, she can compete strength and size-wise, but I think it's too early for her. I don't think she is ready. This would be a massive upset, way more than the line suggests, if she pulls this off. Right now, we can get the champion, Jessica Andrade, at minus 180, and I'm laying that wood. I think that's a phenomenal price tag on Jessica Andrade. She should be minus 250 here. But the hype on Weili Zhang is real. I think people are seeing things that aren't really there. I think people are talking themselves into a big underdog because of the way that she has been set up. There were people who legitimately thought that Dan Hardy was going to be able to beat GSP when that fight happened, but that's because of the way that she had been hyped, the way that he had been pushed, and that's exactly what's happening here with Weili Zhang. I don't see her beating Jessica Andrade anywhere, and when she feels Andrade's power, I think she's going to be in for a rude awakening. We've never seen her get so hard that she gets hurt. And trust me, Andrade will hurt her. How she bounces back from that can tell us a lot. But I think we're going to roll with the champion here. I'm laying minus 180. That'll do it for UFC Shenzhen. Thank you for sticking with me, diehards. Go ahead and give me a follow over at Die Hard MMA Pod. Throw me a like down there. Let's comment, subscribe, share the show, get the word out. I appreciate all the support. Let's recap those picks. We're going to start the night off with a 2-unit parlay. Damir Ismagulov, Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos. That's going to give us plus 109. We're going to hit that up twice. Mark De La Rosa is our underdog on the night. We're going to get him at plus 165 and hope he can grapple out a win or even land us a choke. And then we're going to lay the wood with the champion. 1.8 units to win one with Jessica Andrade at minus 180. Thank you for the love and support. We are looking forward to UFC 242 next weekend. Everybody from the States, have a happy and safe Labor Day. I know everybody travels and does some crazy stuff over the weekend. Show me some love. Hit me up on Twitter. Hang out with me. Love you all. Have a great weekend. Good luck waking up at 3 a.m. to watch these fights. Let's roll.